Okay, hello everybody. Been a long day, but a good day. And so my name is Bill Moses, and a little bit about my background and why I'm here. Some time ago, maybe 10 years, I got involved with Bobby and Mary Holland and Lynn Redman and Laura Bono and Dr. Hooker in a company, a nonprofit called World Mercury Project, and fell in love with the mission and worked with the team to shift that to children's health defense. And really interesting situation happened to me was that we were in my company was a probiotic beverage company called Kavita, and we were in a transaction with PepsiCo, and we were getting poised to be sold. And one of the things that came up for me amongst the strategic investor was my orientation and affiliation with something that was considered fringe at the time. And it was one of the toughest decisions I had to make, which was to leave the board of Children's Health Defense because of the situation with the FDA. We actually got a warning letter. They were scrutinizing us. And I think it goes to show how impactful a regulator can be if, in fact, you're not on the right side of their equation. And I think what we've seen happen recently is that that calculus has been turned upside down, finally, so that folks like us could be advocates for what's right, which is MAHA Institute, the core values. And so moving from that point on, started a bunch of brands and assembled this team up here that really have been active, not only in core values of making America healthy again, but actually doing the work. What we'll have up here with Bill Weiland and Dan Fabricant and Steve Bullock are guys, teams, partners that have actually been in the street, in the field, developing brands for metabolic health. Everything that we are now espousing and driving has been part of a subculture within the natural foods and supplement industry. This industry, which represents about $160 billion a year, is advocacy, is policy pushing, is getting local officials elected. We believe that this particular group, industry, can advance the zeitgeist of the moment, which is MAHA, and make it into an institutional legacy movement that goes well beyond this moment, well beyond the 4 years Bobby's going to be in office, and actually extend with legs to families and communities across America through the product of employment, of brands, of companies that are in the food, beverage, and supplement industry. And so my objective and agenda is to actually use this force, this political business energy, to continue to drive deeper, broader across all socioeconomic places across all communities in America. So that's a little bit about my background and why I'm here, and I brought this team up. And with that, I'll give it to Bill Weiland.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Okay, hello everybody, I'm Bill Weiland. I have been in the natural products industry for 46 years, a CEO for 35 years. My company is Presence Marketing. We represent natural and organic brands to conventional grocery stores and natural food stores. But we've become ultra influential in the food business, and I'll give you some great examples. First of all, to simplify our business, we're building brands. We've built iconic brands for many years like Amy's Kitchen, Cliff Bar, Go Macro, traditional medicinal teas. We work on services like innovation and product optimization. We're also financiers. We write checks, small and large, and we have all kinds of partners, angel investors, banks, venture capital groups, et cetera. So we raise serious capital for emerging and existing natural and organic brands. I have been doing a report for 11 years I affectionately call Bankable Trends, Presence Marketing logo. I consider the second most popular swoosh in America. But I promised 11 years ago that I would never call one incorrectly, and guess what? Batting 1,000. I can tell you what's going to hit and what's not. Let's talk a little bit real quickly about what's not. Crickets are not the next sushi. Crickets are the next bug. Nobody's eating effing bugs, okay? I'll tell you what else people don't want. Lab food, precision fermentation, no chance. Like bioidentical dairy, no way. Cell-based meat, the cell ain't gonna sell, and I promise you, all of that is 100% accurate, okay? So 11 years ago, I called the collagen and bone broth trend. People were like, Bill, what the HE double hockey sticks are you even talking about? Like, what is this stuff? There was nothing in the channel except Gray's Lake gelatin, right? And I said, well, look, if you want to build muscle, you eat steak, you eat chicken, you eat beans, you eat nuts, those amino acids will rebuild muscle tissue. But if you want different benefits, like bright, taut skin, really high-level joint health as you age, great digestion, you need those amino acids around the joint of an animal. You can't replicate those anywhere in nature. Glutamine, proline, glycine, alanine, arginine, very difficult to get. So we went then and invested and built brands like Bonafide Restorative Bone Broth, like Vital Proteins, Ancient Nutrition, worked with Jordan Rubin and his team. Same time, 11 years ago, we called grain-free. We always know the why. Grain-free, think about it. You capture your gluten-free customer. You capture the customer who understands anti-nutrients. You know, the phytic acid in grains, the lectins in beans, legumes, and other vegetation, and how they bind with nutrients at a molecular level and make them inaccessible in the gut. So grain-free, the biggest percentage of sales, though, is just people that say, hey, I don't want a carbohydrate bomb. I want my cracker or my tortilla to be calories of consequence. Let's talk about seed oils and animal fats now. So we got after seed oils 15 years ago. We have a great partner in Boulder Canyon. We kept getting distribution. Their stuff kept getting discontinued when we got further and further away from Boulder. And I said, guys, you know, your canola, your saf, your sunflower, I got an idea. Let's go 3 platforms, coconut, olive, avocado. Let's build under those 3 higher value oils. Business has exploded, now #1 chip in the country, many hundreds of millions of dollars, untold numbers of jobs and influence, and they're retrofitting all products now going completely seed oil free. Okay, Bobos, they saw me 10 years ago. They had that Smart Balance, natural equivalent Earth Balance, toxic as plutonium. I said, take that stuff out. I'll give you 2 choices, butter, coconut oil. They chose coconut oil. They were a small little business, cottage industry, now headed towards $200 million, killing it. And let's talk about how we're building animal fat. I have props. This brand, MAHA, a proper tortilla chip cooked in beef fat. Incredible. Like you eat chips, you go to the Mexican restaurant, you know, it's kind of a gut bomb. This is the churro flavor, but when I'm eating the plain, I'm scooping ceviche, I'm scooping beef tartare. These are like real food calories. You guys got to try it. I got another one here. We're launching the first ancestral protein bar, and I'll see who's got some skills out there because I'm going to fire at least one of these into the audience. So this bar has Prima. This bar has grass-fed collagen. It has grass-fed whey. It has grass-fed tallow, organic honey, simple ingredients. You eat when you feel like Tarzan. I see a guy like there challenging me, thinks I can't get it there, but I put a little
Nice.
Bam! All right, right over his head. I think he should have had it. Okay.
He was
Where you at?
gentle.
Nothing broke, ladies and gentlemen. We're okay. Okay, so got a brand called Somos, Mexican food company, came to visit us recently at the affectionately named Bellagio, where we host meetings in Chicago. I told them, you want to build a big food company? Launch refried beans cooked in tallow. 2 SKUs coming. They'll be here for us to taste in 35 days. We're going to launch them this calendar year. And then I got a young couple of chefs. One of them's local here, Jesse and Ben's. Frozen French fries in either plant oils that are higher value or beef tallow. Then just a quick primer on regenerative ag. My numbers, I usually make my numbers, always, to be fair. I'm saying 18 years to 10% of all US farmland farmed regeneratively. Okay, that is the path that I see us on right now, blocking and tackling with a little extra juice. I'm not going to get into the benefits of regen ag. We had experts up here all day. You guys know that. So I just want you to know, we've been acquired recently by a group called Platform. These guys are tremendous. It's still business as usual for presence marketing, except it feels like a little Elon-esque rocket fuel injected into us. But we're going to fight the good fight here long term, keep putting jobs on the board, keep influencing the quality of products, organic, natural, and I promise you, we will have hundreds and hundreds of SKUs in the next 3 years launched that will be high quality beef and bison tallow based, no vegetable oils, duck fat, schmaltz or chicken fat, and pork lard. So we'll continue doing our jobs. We are grateful to be here and continue to support the mission. And here's what I want to say to our friends across the aisle. This is such a layup. Don't fight us on this one, Democrats. I'll tell you this train is coming and you have two choices. Get on board or get out of the way. Let's go, MAHA.
Great, thanks, Bill. You know, I got to say, like, when you think about action and you think about supporting brands and driving brands and creating new categories, Bill has been at the forefront of that for years. So this is not something new. It's something that he's been doing, we've been doing, and we're going to continue to. And now with MAHA behind us, we got more room to run. I want to now talk about Dan. Dan Fabricant is the Executive Director, CEO of National Products Association. I'll let him get into what that's about. I want to give a tip of the hat to Dan. Whenever we saw that Bobby was really advocating for natural products, supplements, et cetera, I went to Dan. I said, Dan, we want to roll out grassroots support around the country to support Bobby in his nomination. Lend a hand. Dan stepped up in a second. 40,000 emails, personal meetings going in to see Collins, Graham, Murkowski, et cetera, to push from the top down and from the bottom up. With 80,000 companies, with over 300,000 employees that are paying taxes and voting for congressmen and senators, the muscle that he brings to our movement as an advocacy group is second to none as it relates to the natural products and supplements industry, and he's here to help us win and drive the agenda. Dan?
Thanks, Bill. Thank you. Well, and Bill's been a longtime member of NPA. We're the oldest and largest trade association in the natural space since 1936. So, you know, I've heard a lot of people say drain the swamp. Not all of it. You got to keep some of us here. But it makes it so Bill can throw things at you. We've got to have, you know, the industry is unique in that, and especially very well aligned with the MAHA movement in that the scales have always seemed to be tipped towards the branded pharma side, and that's something that our industry, the dietary supplement industry, has experienced for years and years and years. How many times have you guys seen a scientific story saying the dietary supplement industry has no science, right? All the time. Clinicaltrials.gov, type in dietary supplement. You will see over 25,000 clinical trials, and they've only started cataloging those since the late 90s. So there aren't that many clinical trials on every pharmaceutical in the world in that time. So it's really important that the movement, you know, MAHA won, but it's not time to go home. It's time to stay involved. 40% of the people that, and I heard a lot of people talking about what's going on in the states, that's really important. 40% of people that serve in state houses find their way to Washington. And so bad ideas don't just start here. It seems like that sometimes, but they do start elsewhere and come here. So it's really important to continue to stay involved, continue to be an advocate for the choices you want to make. That's really probably the most incredible thing that I've had, you know, in working with Bill when we got hooked up, is just making sure that the voice is heard, because people really do want to have a choice. They're tired of that choice being pushed down on them. And without that choice, we don't have companies like Bill's company that's out there looking for options and alternatives, which is really what it's all about. You want to have your choice, you want to have your alternatives, and you want them to be high quality. You don't want to be pushed to some corner that's relegated to being, you know, being in the shadows. So it's really important to keep the message out, keep it strong, and really look forward to working with all of you.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about some of the advocacy you're doing on behalf of our industry, MAHA, et cetera, at the FDA, being an ex-FDA guy.
Sure, big policy issues at FDA, but first and foremost, how many of you have an HSA or FSA? 44 million American households with FSAs and HSAs. You can buy sunglasses with FSAs and HSAs. You can't buy vitamin D. Kind of silly, right? Dr. Makari, who's at FDA now, who was very vocal about vitamin D being the biggest cohort outside of obesity for COVID. He thinks that's kind of ridiculous. Why can't we have access to things, just basic nutrition, where those in northern climes like Washington, D.C. in the wintertime, people get sicker here, and it's usually tied to vitamin D status and those sorts of things because they don't get out in the sun. So that's one area, is pushing FSAs and HSAs across the goal line. And if you go to our website, npanational.org, there's an action center. You can write your Congress people and tell them that you want HSAs and FSAs to be covered. A lot of FDA reforms right now. Technology drives everything. That's what you're hearing. But technology still favors, unfortunately, that other side of the street. Folks are working on right now ingredients from food, peptides from food, things from eggs, things from milk that may focus on lean body mass, what have you. Those can be and have been locked out of the market by nuisance INDs, by tricks that the pharma industry can pull. So those are things we're fighting back against. We have 2 lawsuits against FDA right now, one of which is on a form of niacin, the same niacin that was in everyone's breakfast cereals growing up, to try to restrict access. It's a better form of niacin just because a pharma company decided to make a paper filing. So completely denies people an alternative, a better form of niacin, a better way to stay healthy. You need niacin, and everyone needs niacin for every bodily function. So these are the sorts of things we're fighting for, and as well as working with Bill and Steve on a lot of the GLP-1 stuff. It's very important that our industry has always been holistic, and the GLP-1s can be great holistic tools used across the board. So looking forward to working with you on that, even integrated.
Appreciate it. Okay, I want to introduce Steve Bullock. Steve, one of the things that we want to do, I think, in the MAHA movement is, again, move from sick care to well care, right? We've heard that. To think about, health span, not just lifespan. And to find ways that through precision medicine and telemedicine, we could really customize cost effectively some of these ways and means of staying healthier longer and not having to go into the big pharma sort of vertical. And I think Steve is the CEO of Perfect RX. It's a national pharmacy. And what he's doing in trying to get compounding pharmacies to have more room to run where they're not being clipped by big pharma in different ways is really important if we're going to shift from a sick care to a well care paradigm. And I want to pass it over to Steve to kind of set it up.
Thanks, Bill. Good afternoon. Thanks for sticking around. That's great. One thing that Dan just mentioned is we are a pharmacy, but we want to use this like a tool. Okay, so we don't see pharmacy and prescription medications as the be-all and end-all, right? That's what's a little bit different about our pharmacy. We want to work with telemedicine groups and providers, and we do work with a lot of them. We see the good, bad, and the ugly on telemed. We see the folks that are just out there trying to push prescriptions and to push medications. We want to stay away from that. We want to find an end game with a prescription. This is not a lifetime medication, right? We do move a lot of GLP-1s, but we also have what we call legend drugs, the typical brand generic drugs that you all have heard of. We don't want that to be, again, the end game. We don't want people to be on a blood pressure medication forever. That should be the last resort, ultimately. So what Bill asked me to do, he wanted me to talk a little bit about what pharmacy could share with this group, because this is it's music to my ears listening to today. You guys are all like-minded, and we're all thinking about the same sorts of things. Again, we're a little bit unique on the pharmacy side. Most pharmacies are like, how do I get more scripts out the door? We're trying to think about how do we get fewer scripts out the door, but at scale. We do have technology, so we're able to scale pharmacy operations. It's a bit unique. That's hard to do in pharmacy. It's actually more complicated. I've managed the medical side a little bit before. I know quite a bit about that. It is harder to manage prescription data and patient data on the pharmacy side, I would argue, personally, than on the medical side. So there's a lot of complexity that goes into pharmacy, but a couple of things I would just bring to your attention. Number one would be the cost of pharmacy. If we're talking about well care instead of sick care, the cost of legitimate prescription medications that can help people that they won't be on forevermore is sometimes cumbersome and above and beyond what a patient can pay. And I wanted to give you a little bit of an example. I promised Bill I wouldn't focus exclusively on GLPs, but I want to give you this practical example. We beat on pharma companies a lot, and that's legitimate and perfectly reasonable. The one entity that folks may not be as aware of in terms of elevating costs would be pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs. How many of you have heard of PBMs? Okay, most of us. You may not understand the extent to which they are involved in the cost elevation. So for example, at our pharmacy, I just checked yesterday, cost of Zepbound, a pen of Zepbound, which is Mounjaro, tirzepatide basically, that's going to be about $1,045 to us. So the pharmacy pays a wholesaler $1,045. And if a patient comes in with insurance, either Medicare Part D or commercial insurance, we're going to get $1,050, $1,060 reimbursed to us. So that employer group or Part D plan is going to pay us over $1,000. If that patient comes in and says, I'm paying cash, that patient's going to pay about $500. Okay? So extricating that PBM, getting them out of the way, and they're just paying cash instead of having it processed by a PBM, that's about a $500 reduction. Now, it's more complicated than that. We don't have time. Bill's going to tackle me if I go on too much longer. So I can't get into the nuances of that. But just think about that. It's a $500 elevation in costs just by removing or adding the PBM. Okay, so that just gives you a sense of that. The second piece that I think makes it difficult on the pharmacy side to really involve ourselves more deeply in WellCare, there's a myriad of regulatory things. I'll just call them things, because there's a bunch of stuff out there. There's state regulatory issues, there's the FDA, and I would tell you, the FDA is really not the issue in most cases. You know, pharmacy, again, is a little different than the medical side. Every state is a little bit different in how they regulate pharmacy. So what's legitimate and legal here in, Maryland may not be legal in Nebraska, may not be legal in California. And so the FDA has this overlaying construct of regulatory guidelines, and then the states interpret that differently, sometimes much differently. So it's just very difficult to operate in pharmacy with things like peptides. You have BPC 157, you have ipamorelin, you've got CJC. You've got a lot of these things that pharmacies, legitimate, legal, licensed pharmacies, cannot touch today. So if the FDA, and I know Secretary Kennedy has talked about removing some of these from what we call the naughty list. BPC 157 would be a good example. That can help a lot of people. We're not allowed to touch that. In fact, we'll typically get shut down if a pharmacy touches some of these types of peptides that are on the naughty list. So with that, I think I'm almost out of time.
Thank you, Leland. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mary. We're done. A couple minutes back. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it, everybody.